Hi guys, the first Battlefield 6 beta has just ended and they had a peak concurrent player count of over 500,000, which is just absolutely massive. The overall feeling I would say is relief. I'd say the Battlefield community has been starved for a few years now, and this is something we can actually finally sink our teeth into. That being said, there are a few worrying elements. I actually think the next few months are going to be very interesting for seeing the kind of direction that they're going to go in. So let's start with the good, and I'm going to be extremely harsh and unfair to Battlefield 6 at this point and run through this section fairly quickly, despite the fact that the good definitely outweighs the bad. They've done a lot right and deserve credit for that, but I think plenty of people have spoken about the good stuff, so I'm going to go over it pretty quickly. Right, the graphics. The game looks amazing, and I'm going to combine that with the fact that it runs really well as well, which is hugely important. 2042 has some real performance issues, which I think were tied to their updated Frostbite engine. But it looks like they've ironed out those issues now, which is a massive deal. Very appreciative of that fact. The audio sounds amazing. It feels like a proper battle. Anything flying overhead sounds incredible. I haven't noticed any cheesy voice lines as well. It all sounded very grounded. One criticism I have heard is that footsteps aren't that audible. I actually don't mind this at all. If you've got things blowing up and gunshots going on around you, I don't necessarily want to be able to hear footsteps easily. The time to kill for me is fine, I like it. The time to death is a different story, but we'll get into that with the bad stuff. I quite like the movement speed as well, it's not too quick. Big fan of there not being any tactical sprint. And really, I said I'd gloss over the good stuff quickly, but I can't overemphasize the fact that there are the fundamentals there of a really good Battlefield game. And the good outweighs the bad, but we've got to talk about the bad. I should also state that this was a beta. I can't imagine the game when it releases is going to be massively different. I know they have talked about some changes they're going to make. But on to the bad. Well, we've already spoken about time to death. There's clearly some, netcode issue going on here, because at times I've been getting killed in what looks like an instant for me, and also when around cover, and it's just not a good feeling when that happens. Hopefully they'll get looked into before release. Automatic weapons are too laser beamy, especially with attachments. I do know this is something they have addressed and said that they're going to fix for release. Even without any attachments, it's a little bit too little recoil, for my preference at least. The HUD. I've disabled a bunch of stuff on my HUD, but there's still a few too many outlines and visual cues, in my opinion. They've got, if you turn the HUD off, they've got a really gritty and grounded looking game. It looks amazing without the HUD on. But you're obviously at a big disadvantage, so you'll turn it back on and there's just a few too many glowing outlines that take away from that gritty nature, which they've clearly worked hard to establish. That being said, all the cosmetics look great, nothing crazy, and they've committed to keeping it that way, thankfully. You are spotted too often, in my opinion. I don't like the auto spotting, and I especially don't like being able to spot people when you're down. I know spotting people when down has garnered some negative attention, so I'm sure the developers are aware of it. I don't know if that's a bug or if that's a feature. Hopefully they change it, because there's nothing you can do to a down person. You can't go over and execute them so they stop spotting your team. Breakthrough is broken at the moment. It's far too easy to defend. I don't think that's going to be too hard for them to fix, but very rarely in the beta have the attacking team got past a couple of sectors from what I've played so far. Now, these complaints are all relatively small. What I think Battlefield 6's biggest problem right now is maps. And I'm not just talking about in the beta, because in the beta we had two small maps, Siege of Cairo and Iberian Offensive, and a medium-sized map called Liberation Peak. Now, part of me thought that Siege of Cairo and Iberian Offensive were going to be the two small maps we'd get on launch, and the rest would be bigger, but that doesn't look like it is the case. And I should say that I've got nothing wrong with small maps. I enjoy them. I've had good fun playing the beta. I would probably prefer them to be interspersed with plenty of bigger maps, but let's just go through the map list and you guys can see what you think. Okay, maps. So we know about Siege of Cairo and Iberian Offensive, two small, fast-paced maps. We've also got Liberation Peak, which is a medium-sized map with planes, helicopters and all kinds of vehicles. So it's important I highlight the fact that it says jets here, because when we look at some of the other maps, it kind of gives us an indication of size, at least in my opinion. Could be speculating too much here. Liberation Peak, so 2 small maps and a medium map. Next week we're getting Empire State to the beta, which is an infantry only map, so it's going to be, I can't imagine that's going to be a big map, obviously infantry only. I do reckon it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm a bit surprised they haven't put in a bigger map to the beta for next week, considering there's been a bit of noise around the fact that the map sizes have been quite small so far. I'm guessing they were locked in and they just had to commit to this being the next one that we experience. Next up, Operation Firestorm. My. How we like Operation Firestorm. I think this map is going to show just how good Battlefield 6 can be. Definitely on the big map scale. Next, we've got Saints Quarter, a close quarter combat map designed for fast-paced infantry-only fights. Next up, Sobek City. Now, I don't have much information about this one. All I'm going on is the fact that it says take to the skies in an attack helicopter, whereas all the other big maps, as you'll see, will say jets or all vehicles. So the fact that it's an attack helicopter, I could be off my rocker here. I just assume this is going to be a medium-sized map. Next up, Mirek Valley, and this says every type of vehicle. I've heard this is the biggest map, so excited for that. Looks like we've got a little trench system going on as well. Manhattan Bridge, engaging close quarters gunplay on the streets. Take to the skies in an attack helicopter. So once again, I'm thinking medium size for me. So just to round off, and I could be wrong about some of those medium-sized maps, they might actually be bigger. But out of the 9 starting maps, 4 of them are going to be small. And for me, that's not really ideal for a Battlefield game. And now I'm going to get into something I don't usually do, which is pure speculation. But we'll go into the ugly, because I'm just wondering why it's the case that we're getting so many small maps. And why 2 out of 3 of the maps, and soon to be 3 out of 4 of the maps, the beta were small. It could be because they wanted to test and just get as much data as possible, and those maps maximize the number of engagements. That's entirely possible. I'm sure that's factored into it. But also, now is the time when Call of Duty, who Battlefield have always tried to compete with, are releasing Beavis and Butthead operators. There could not be a better time for Battlefield to poach Call of Duty fans. So is that factored into the equation as to why the majority of the maps for the betas are going to be small maps, so they're a bit more familiar for those Call of Duty players? And although that's not my preferred approach, I actually wouldn't hate that if the idea is get them in the door, get them hooked on Battlefield, and then you can deliver them the big proper Battlefield maps. But for me, looking at the map list on launch, I don't think there's enough of those big Battlefield maps. But I don't know. Let you guys tell me what you think of the situation. Obviously pure speculation on the Call of Duty front. I know for Battlefield, their ambition is sometimes their own worst enemy. They're always wanting more and more players. And obviously I'm not a business guy. I'm not a marketing guy. Maybe that's what they need considering the amount of resources they've put into this game. But you just hope that they don't try and become too much like these games which they're trying to poach players from, because Battlefield is amazing as a Battlefield game. Now with that all being said, like I said at the start, the positives massively outweigh the negatives despite having dedicated so much time to the negatives. I really enjoyed the first beta. They've got the makings of a great game on their hands. I just want to experience it with bigger maps, providing a bigger sandbox with more toys to play with. I think that's the best thing for the longevity of the game. Those big maps just provide so much variety, and then I like hopping into the odd infantry only game. For this game, which you've got to compare with the likes of 2042 and Delta Force, because there's simply nothing else in this gaming niche, is leagues above those other 2 games. I think and hope that after the small map criticisms which they've already heard, they'll add in a series of bigger maps with each season of the live service. And I'm sure a bunch of them will be Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 maps, which I'm not complaining about at all. So that's it. Overall, very positive. I'm looking forward to the next beta and full release. I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are. Leave them in the comments below. And as per usual, if you like the video, make sure you leave a like and also think about subscribing. Cheers guys, see you in the next one.